Good evening, one and all, and a very Merry Christmas to you and your loved ones. Yes, we will be doing this episode in English. This is Film for Thought. I am your host, Constantine, and today I want to talk to you about The Magnificent Ambersons. This is the second film directed by the great Orson Welles, and it is also where his troubles began as a director. It is the beginning of a very problematic period for him and for his co-workers. And needless to say, his approach to cinema will never be the same again after this film. Now, for those of you who don't know, it is true that The Magnificent Ambersons is not among the most popular films ever made, not among the most frequently mentioned. So for those of you who don't know, The Magnificent Ambersons came out in 1942, a year after Wells' debut feature, which was Citizen Kane. And what a debut. Now, it is worth mentioning that Citizen Kane was not the economic success that Hollywood had anticipated. And that's the main reason why the studios backing The Magnificent Ambersons began to interfere with the production of that film. And this is the main reason why I want to talk about The Magnificent Ambersons, to point out what can go wrong when there is too much studio interference. I think this film is a terrific example of that. But before I go into a rant about what the myriad of things that are wrong with this particular picture, let me give you a bit of the story background. This film, at its most basic level, tells the story of the decline of a once well-regarded American family, the Ambersons. These people were once among the nation's elite, and with the coming of the Industrial Revolution and the manufacturing of automobiles and the change in the economic spectrum of the US and the world, families like the Andersons, whose main income came either from a military vocation or from agriculture, quickly came under threat of extinction. And this is one of the film's key themes, the end of the good old days, the unstoppable passage of time, and how eventually everything that we consider to be so safe and dear to us, eventually we lose it, whether we like it or not. This is not a cheerful film, at least for the most part. At least it was not intended as such. And so, yes, at its most basic level, the story basically chronicles the decline of a once rich American family. Now, what I want to talk about, to focus on mainly, is what are the problems with this film? First of all, right from the top, I want to make one thing very clear. It is my opinion that had Wells been given the opportunity to complete his creative vision, this film would have been a masterpiece. Certainly one of the finest American films ever made. Citizen Kane would have been at this film's mercy had Wells been able to complete his vision. However, due to the economic failure of Citizen Kane, and also due to the fact that Wells was a man who tended to push the envelope, and this is something that you see in all of his films, the studio thought it would be best for him to step aside. And so what happened was, after Wells had completed a large chunk of the film, roughly about 2 hours of content. That's when the studio heads decided to step in. They sent Wells down to Brazil to start shooting some documentaries, at the same time ousting the director from the editing room. Wells was not allowed to edit his own film. And they started to peel away content. They removed a complete hour of footage and did a complete hack job on the last half hour of the film. The last half hour of the film is abominable. It is a mess. It is awful. Unfocused. Events just unravel without any sense of consequence. How this film was outed is beyond me. Who thought, among all those people, that this was a finished product? Not to mention that they just stuck a completely semi-sentimental, semi-hopeful ending just for the heck of it, in order to make the film a bit lighter than they thought it was. So in the end result, you have a film that is amazing in its first half hour. Then things start to get a little awkward. Characters start making decisions and start portraying emotions that are not earned. And by the end, you just have this pastiche of scenes that make no sense whatsoever. And so, needless to say, when the Magnificent Ambersons came out, it made no impact at all. As a matter of fact, it reflected so poorly on Wells that the rest of the work he did in Hollywood as a director, films like The Stranger or Lady from Shanghai with Rita Hayworth, went completely uncredited. For the longest time, Wells was not recognized as the director of the film. And if you watch that film, Lady from Shanghai, it will say written and produced by Orson Welles. It will not say directed, which is interesting. And after that, he went to Europe and he started begging for money to make films. Films like Othello and Chimes at Midnight. Wonderful films, for the most part. But he was never again able to emulate the success and that sense of completion that you find in Citizen Kane. And mind you, Citizen Kane isn't even his best picture, in my opinion. Wells has made at least 4 other films that in many ways are better. And the Magnificent Ambersons I consider, personally, to be among that number, if for no other reasons than for the excellence of that first half hour. And this is what is so disheartening about the Magnificent Ambersons. The promise that it shows. This is a film that could have been something truly great, something worth calling the greatest American film ever made. Alas, in its place, you have a film that is a shadow, a mere shadow of what it could have been. Nothing more than a promise. And sadly, this trend translates into every one of Wells' films, because after that point, his films fall into 2 distinct categories. They are the films for which he doesn't have the money to do everything he wants, and they are the films for which he doesn't have complete control, even though he has the money. So, yeah, this man really did not have his way, which is disappointing because I think in all of his films there are glimpses of true brilliance and originality. So I guess this covers it up. As far as the Magnificent Ambersons is concerned, if you can find this film, I recommend that you watch it, at least the first half hour. If you have the patience, it's not a very long film. I think it's an hour and 28 minutes, or yeah, I think it's an hour and 28 minutes. Watch it, enjoy it if you can. You have a been warned. Consider yourselves warned. The last half hour, at least in my opinion, is atrocious. But why not? Give it a shot if you can find it. And that's all I have to report for now. See you guys next time. Have a good evening, happy holidays, and talk to you soon.